A professional counselor in the Dallas area is growing in popularity for his treatment methods.
How do you talk to kids about terror? And with social media and television, it's everywhere, and it's unavoidable for kids.
Rusty Lozano is the founder of the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. He's also been nationally recognized for his work with brain mapping.
He's created a gym to work out the mind. His office features an obstacle course.
Rusty Lozano is a licensed professional counselor, helping children with headaches, with anxiety, ADHD, and more.
Here's where Lozano comes in. He teaches kids how to think their pain away with something called biofeedback.
A North Texas therapist is treating patients in this unconventional way.
We have Rusty Lozano who's joining us today. He's a licensed professional counselor.
He put together an unusual treatment for teenagers who are struggling with mental issues, except he's taking this now a step further.
Rusty Lozano, a leading therapist and pediatric biofeedback therapist based in Texas at the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. And Rusty, thanks for being with us tonight.
Rusty Lozano, a father of 4 and also a professional counselor in Texas, says it's all about being a credible resource to your children.
The Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, your dedicated resource for mental health news, views, and tips you can use. Brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas. And now, here's Rusty.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the show. You're listening to the Therapy Hour podcast, broadcasting live from the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy studios in Addison, Texas. And thank you for joining us. Growing up as a boy, it can be difficult sometimes. I've gotten into a lot of trouble. I've learned things. Like sometimes all kids need to learn through the school of hard knocks. Sometimes, don't climb the tree, you'll fall down. Don't run on this surface, you might scratch your knee. And then you do, and then you end up learning through consequences. But that's one of the best ways to learn. Sometimes it's the only way to learn. Curiosity and listening to limitations or things that maybe you don't believe are going to happen to you. Kids will push the envelope, and they always will. And that's the way of the world. You learn through mistakes. That's what school's about. You go to school, and you learn material, and you take exams, and turn in homeworks and projects. Sometimes you get great grades, sometimes you don't. And then you keep trying, and then you improve. It's all about learning through failure, learning through success, That's the way that things are. So sometimes behavior can be a little bit testy. I mean, schools can kind of get a little bit concerned about some behaviors because, when you think about it, there's a lot of teachers, a lot of kids in a classroom. There's usually 1 or 2 teachers to a ratio of kids that are, 15, 20. I don't know how many in your class, but when I was little, it used to be kind of a lot.
I have 6 in my class.
You have 6 in your class?
It's a very short class. We have a visitor right now.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Well, you 6 in your class. How many did you grow up with, Dad?
More than 6.
More than 6, I know, yeah.
6 times 3.
Right. So we usually have quite a bit, 16, 20 kids.
That's what it's like as old school.
Yeah, that's kind of the norm. And so, but schools are different in different places. And so there could be all kinds of populations. Sometimes they're bigger, sometimes they're smaller. But it doesn't mean that the school and the values of the schools change. I mean, whether it be a small class, big class, there are rules. You forget about those rules. Sometimes kids push the envelope. And I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but I did, personally. I learned through the school of hard knocks. That can be a really tough thing to learn in those lessons. And it could hurt your feelings and make you feel bad, make you feel like you're no good. So joining me today, I have a father-son duo family here from a local school in town. We're here to talk a little bit about, the onset of behavior and consequences and kind of help maybe normalize some things so that you don't start feeling super down on yourself. You end up getting in trouble, or even if you have a child getting in trouble and it seems like you have to explain things over and over again and things don't change, that it doesn't start to damage self-esteem, because just like what you said earlier, you can turn things around. And that's some things that you try to do. Turn it around. How do you do it? And when do you do it? What does it feel like? And so Joining me today, I have, and we'll go first name only, Thatcher. Say hello.
Hello. Hello.
Dad, first name only.
James.
Hola. And we're 3 dudes in the studio today. Boy behavior versus girl behavior is different. Sometimes it's not.
Really, 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 really different.
Yeah. And sometimes when you're a rough and tumble boy, we do things a little different. You know, we're more physical with our behavior. Sometimes maybe our voices get loud. Our reactions are strong because we're boys.
Sometimes we steal things. One thing we really hate about girls is they love Barbies. And they love a lot of things, but boys love certain things. They love cool stuff. They love high tops. They love almost everything that's cool. But some people in my class I get really mad with, and that's why I'm here, because I need some help.
Cool. And that's what we're going to talk about. And it's not a show about girls against boys, because I tell you what, girls are pretty cool too, and they're in some pretty cool things and can do a lot of things that boys can do. It's just a different world for boys. So how do you take responsibility for something that you've done? How do you, and I'm not asking you like directly, but that's what we're going to be discussing. Like, what do you do? How do you manage things? Now, one thing I've come to learn about you is that you're really good with your words. You can express things. You can say, I'm sorry. You can take responsibilities. Sometimes you can't help like the behavior.
Yeah, sometimes I do a lot of things that I'm not supposed to. Sometimes... Okay. Are there commercial breaks on here?
Yeah, we'll take a commercial break.
Okay. Well, I like this place because it's an awesome place to learn techniques that help you a long time the way. And that's why I like coming here. That's why I like being here. I had a couple issues at my old school, so that's why I'm here, and I'm really smart.
And you are. And you're smart, and you're kind, and you're awesome. And you've had a couple of issues, but that doesn't mean that you're a bad kid. And it doesn't mean that when you make mistakes, that you let those things start to affect your self-esteem and make you feel like you're dumb, like you're no good, like you just can't get this right, like you're just like you're not effective. Mm-hmm. So let's get into this. When you make a mistake, how do you know when it's time to stop? Or how do you know you're making a mistake, and how do you recover?
I mean, I kind of don't know, because sometimes I don't do my technique. Sometimes I don't do something that I'm not supposed to.
So let me give you a hint. Is there a time that you should stop? Like, should you just stop at the beginning? And like, is the objective to never make a mistake? Should you be like 100% perfect?
No, not at all.
Dad, what is your answer on that?
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. So when do you actually stop the behavior and turn it around? Well, the answer is anytime you recognize that it's out of sorts and it's not where it's supposed to be. So it could be 1 minute into the issue. It could be 2 minutes into it. It could be at the very tail end. It could be after it's already over. But it's you recognizing that something is different and wrong. You shouldn't be doing it. That's what the main objective is. Now, the timing on it, does it have to be 100%? I mean, do we want to get to the point that you stop your reactions and your behaviors before it turns into a big deal? Yes, that's the big goal. That's the big objective. But is it doable now? Like, is it easy to do?
No, not at all.
Not at all. So here's what we do. When you catch yourself doing something, you stop and you redirect yourself. I'm going to tell you a story about me. I'm going to disclose myself because, I told you a little bit about like why I got into this field. Some people get into it because they love kids. Some people get into it because they've had family that experienced these difficulties in the past. Some people get into it because they were somebody who struggled like that. I was somebody who struggled like this. I had behavior issues growing up as a child. I told you, I shared some of the things that I used to do, and I don't want you to repeat them because, you don't want to go through the lessons that I went through. But I'll fast forward to a time in high school when I was with a group of kids. And
like gangster friends?
Not really. I was never really gangster type, but just like kids that broke the rules.
Like make someone that... No, that's mine. Okay. Like me, like you, like they were like friends that you liked, but you like getting in trouble a lot.
Right. And we got in trouble together. Here's what happened. We had done something. And the principal, her name is Mrs. Staples. And she came out and she goes, boys. And then they all ran off. And I started to run with them to run away from the principal. And then I'm like, whoa, like, what am I doing? I'm running away from the principal's school. They kept running. I stopped. And then I walked back to where she was at. I was the only one. And I started to run away. And I was part of that behavior. But I stopped myself, realizing in my head that what I just done was very, very wrong. So I stopped right in the middle of running, and she was standing out in the hallway, and I looked, and I knew that it was really, really, really wrong. And so I stopped myself, and I went and walked back to her, and I went to the office. And guess what? It wasn't that I was in trouble. She was trying to understand, like, why I was doing this. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? She knows that that's not me. And so she took the opportunity to try to understand, like, what was going on, like, why I did it. And, at that time, I was just a really rebellious kid in school. And I learned. I wish I could go back and change it. So that's why I, work on this field to help kids like you, like, early on, so that you can maybe learn from my mistakes and maybe learn from my experience to kind of set it right so that you don't feel like you have to, like, always run into a situation that could eventually beat down your self-esteem and make you feel like you're no good, like, nobody likes you, like you're in trouble. So that's why I do the kind of work that I do. But see, it took me actually starting to run away from my principal and then stop and realize, like, how absolutely wrong this was for me to go back and, like, and correct it.
So all that time through middle school and then grade school and all that time, EC, kindergarten, all that stuff. You don't know what EC is, it's early childhood. Mm-hmm. But, so all those years, you threw stuff, you ran away, you did all that stuff.
Right.
But when you were in high school, you stopped. Like, what year?
That was my junior year in high school.
And you realized...
I realized that what I was doing in the path...
was completely wrong.
Yes, it was completely wrong. And you know what I started to do?
What?
I changed from that point on. I didn't go back, and I didn't really hang out with those guys anymore. I kind of did my own thing. And, I took my licks. I had consequences. So I went to detention, served my time, but then I actually learned from it because I realized that was the wrong thing to do. You see how that works? Mm-hmm. So it took me actually in the act. So I didn't stop myself before and, like, realize that maybe I shouldn't run. I was already running away. So the timing for you to correct yourself can be any time, Thatcher. It doesn't have to be like, oh, well, I already blew my day, and now just like you have stinking thinking because you are already in trouble and you already have a consequence and you already did whatever it is that you're doing. You can always stop and correct yourself. So timing is everything. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to continue our talk on correcting behavior as a boy.
Man talk.
Be right back.
Woohoo.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hi, we're back. Took a short break. We had a time to kind of talk about boy behavior and correcting, going down a path that is not healthy when you're getting in trouble. So joining me in studio
is Thatcher.
And James.
Thatcher and James. All boy crew talking about boy behaviors. One thing about boys is we're really touchy, like,
picky.
Yeah, we're more tactile in a lot of ways, and we're more exploring and hitting things or, like, bumping into things.
That's the fact about me. I'm not a good boy because you're supposed to be the boy that like bugs, but I do not like them. Not like them.
Yeah, we like giddy stuff, sports. Girls do too, but boy behavior is just the way our brains are wired.
Hockey.
Let's talk about, like, when you're with other kids in your class. and be how other people play into your behaviors. Sometimes people can start problems with you. They're called instigators, and they try to start problems on purpose, and they try to make you get upset, and they make you angry, and maybe they're teasing you, maybe they're joking, maybe they like the way that you react when you get angry, and so it becomes a fun thing to do. How do you handle situations like that? What do you do when somebody is maybe provoking you and trying to pick a fight or trying to irritate you to make you...
I just try to ignore them, but I can't do it. I always get into the fight, but I never get out to the fight. Someone gets out of the fight, but I don't get out of the fight. I always go into the office. I always get consequences, and it's really hard. Really, 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 really hard.
So you know why that happens? Sometimes you have consequences and you get sent to the office because if somebody else started it with you and you're the one that's going to the office, not the other person, maybe your reaction was a lot bigger than theirs. And maybe like the way that you're responding was tenfold than the way that the other kid responded. And some kids, believe it or not, are really good at not getting caught. They may kind of joke around and like be silly, and then you try to joke around too, but then you just happen to be the one who gets caught. Mm-hmm. Or they may try to get a reaction out of you, and you're the one that actually is the one getting caught. So if there's somebody in your class or a group of people in your class that try to irritate you, there's a couple of things that you can do.
Either do my technique.
Well, there's a first step. These are like more social skills. First step is you just ignore. Ignore is what?
Just don't listen to them.
Don't listen, don't look at them, don't interact with them.
Walk away.
Walking away is another one, and walking away is another form of ignoring. You're kind of getting away from the problem. But if it continues and they continue to be bothersome to you and try to instigate, then like you tell someone.
Yeah.
You tell someone. That's usually the last step. After you've ignored, you can walk away. You can use your words, please stop, or please leave me alone. And then if that doesn't work,
tell the teacher.
Tell the teacher. That's your last resort. But you have 3 things that you can do to keep from letting a person in class make you react. When you let people upset you, you become a string puppet. It's like you're giving them complete control over you.
That's what you gotta do.
And is that fair?
Nuh-uh, not at all.
Not at all, right? It's not fair. They're doing things and making you react. So you have to do things to help you control the behavior. And the only way that you can do that is by using techniques, using steps to ignore. First, I'd use your words. Hey, please stop.
I would think to walk away first, but if they bump into you again...
Well, if they're being physical with you, then you certainly tell.
The teacher.
Yeah. You don't be physical back, but you certainly do say something to somebody. And then the other thing that you do is you ignore, use your words. Hey, I don't like that. Ignore, walk away. Telling teachers is your last resort. That's how you stay out of trouble. You ignore and pretend like the problem's not even there. When you don't play into it, see, it takes 2 people to make trouble, unless you're the one doing it all by yourself. But if somebody else is provoking you in class or like being silly, well, I mean, somebody could make fun of your shirt or do things on purpose. You know what? And the other thing is here's the other thing. If you're really upset on the inside, it may not even be this other kid. It may be that you just feel so crummy and like you're looking for like who's making you feel this way, and you could pinpoint somebody in your class and they may not even be doing anything. You see, that's a possibility too. So you have to check yourself often. Make sure that what you're saying and what you're doing is in sync with what is actually happening. And if you're not sure, go up to your teacher and say, Mrs. Krabappel, I don't know if I'm overreacting or if this person's really trying to make me mad, but I feel like this is happening and they're copying me. Or I feel like this. That's what you do. You go up and like you use your words.
But sometimes I can't use my words. I don't like to use my words. I use my hands, fist, belly button.
And that's how you get in trouble. When you take it upon yourself to get physical and like take things in your own hand, that is the direct way to get in trouble. You don't do that in school. You see, you have to be political. You have to be politically correct. That means that you have to go through a chain of command. You have to go through communication outlets to make sure that you're doing it right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because the minute that you take it into your own hands, it doesn't matter if the other person started it, you're in the wrong. because you got physical. And then that's it. No, end of story. I don't even care that the other kid called you a name. I don't care that he threw your pencil or like drew on your paper. You took it too far. You're in trouble. Is that fair?
No.
Not at all. So put that power away, and you should handle it more on a behavior level.
I should try to ignore him instead, but...
Try to ignore, walk away, or tell the teacher, like, if you're not sure if you're in the right, tell the teacher, I'm not sure if I'm, like, reacting to this appropriately, but I feel like he's doing this, and this is what it's making me feel.
What about redirecting? Wants to be Thatcher's friend.
That's what...
Just trying to get attention.
That's what my mom means.
Well, I mean, you know, that a lot of times people will do that to try to have contact with you and interaction with you. But if it's not a positive, not doing it in a positive way, then you have to reinvestigate the efforts or like the reason for that. But if they're just trying to be friendly and like you're just not in the mood for it, right? And they're just trying to be silly with you, be friend-like with you, then you need to tell them, hey, I can't play like that right now. Let's hang out at when we go play outside, you know, something like that. Instead of it so angry and angrier. You know what I'm saying? So that way you can protect yourself from getting too overwhelmed and overstimulated with whatever's happening in the classroom.
Yeah.
So what have we learned today? You have
a lot of options to do.
You have a lot of options. You also learned that, like, you know, it's never too late to try to take things back. It's never too late to try to stop and correct yourself. You learned that you have steps that you can take that don't involve you getting physical. Doesn't involve you hitting. Doesn't involve you hurting. Doesn't involve you overreacting. You've also learned that you can, when you're not sure if you're in the right, you can ask your teacher and say, I'm not sure if I'm responding to this right, but you know, this is what I'm feeling. This is how I'm feeling. This is what's going on. And then let them help you sort it out. And then the other thing is, like, when somebody is trying to be your friend or friendly with you, and you're not in it right now, you just don't want it, then it's your job to put a stop to it and like say, hey man, I can't hang out right now. I'm going to end up getting in trouble. So let's just hang out like maybe on the playground or something like that. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? And you have your steps. Ignore.
Tell the teacher. That's
the last one. You don't always tell, because then she's going to think you're tattling. You ignore. Walk away, use your words, and then if it doesn't stop,
tell the teacher.
Right. Does that make sense to you?
Nah.
So I want you to use those skills and things. Those are some things that we're going to be working on together here. So it's not anything that you have to just overly concern yourself with, but you know, it's just something that you will learn over time. It's a skill, and sometimes you learn through mistakes. You keep learning through mistakes. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Signing off.
See ya.
Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. This has been a Therapy Hour podcast, and have a good afternoon.